Good morning, Commissioner Lerner.
Good morning, Yasmin. How are you today?
I'm doing good, thank you. Just want to let you know we're streaming live already.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Shireen.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All is good on the Newburgh front.
That's great. That's lucky we're not in Texas, right? With the snow.
You're very lucky.
Yeah.
For many reasons. I think we're all great lovers of Arizona, actually, on the commission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chairwoman.
Hi, Yasmin.
Hello. Just wanted to remind everyone we're live. I know you just joined. There's Commissioner Mill.
And Yasmin, I presume you're good to do your regular item of business this morning.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. Hi, Commissioner Mill.
Good morning.
It's a little overcast today.
It is very overcast down here.
Should we even begin to complain about the weather?
Not at all. I got photos from my family in Cincinnati this morning and big snow in Cincinnati. So I think there's big snow through a lot of the country.
Ice in New York, from what I hear.
Yeah.
And power outages in Texas.
The windmills quit working. Why we don't go nuclear, I have no clue. That's the cleanest, purest energy there is, but everybody's afraid.
I'll have to call my son. He works for a geothermal energy company in Houston. And I'll have to say, hey, what's up?
I'm not used to this Google Meet, so I'm always forgetting where different things are on this.
I think the most important thing is to have enough tiles. So to set it, I per Kyle's suggestion, I set it to 30 so that the key people you can visually see all at one time. I think that's really the most important. Hi, Pam. Our council has joined us.
Good morning.
Do you guys all want me to present the agenda today, or did you guys not want me to present the agenda?
I think, Yasmin, what you did last week was great. If you're willing to navigate posting it and then bringing it down when we're more engaged in dialogue and then posting it back up, I found that very helpful. And we may, with some of the items that we're discussing, may want you to call up or put on the screen some of the details with the job descriptions and things like that. So I found that format very helpful. Okay, I believe we're waiting for Commissioners York and Watchman. Okay, I see Commissioner Watchman is dialing in. Hi, Commissioner Watchman.
Good morning.
Morning, Derek.
Morning, everybody. Dave, Shireen,
Good morning.
good morning.
We're waiting for Commissioner York, and then we'll get started. How's the weather where you are? We've all been comparing notes.
Snow. Nice and cold. Snow on the ground. More expected today. So it's good. As they say now, we always need the snow for a good spring. So happy to see it. Although icy conditions don't help for getting to work for a lot of folks that have to go to work.
Okay, I just got a very quick call from Yasmin to let us know that her internet went down just for a moment and she's reconnecting.
Okay.
And while she's doing that, we'll wait for Commissioner York, and hopefully we'll all converge at the same time. And welcome to the public, everybody who is joining us today, a little bit earlier than normal.
Morning.
Okay, welcome. Hello, Commissioner York.
Sorry, I was on another link. Somehow I got another email. So
Well, welcome. You're on the right link now.
Yeah, I
And
know.
we're waiting for, I believe we can start. Yasmin is calling back in. Her internet was just briefly interrupted, and if necessary, I could do roll call if she's not back with us. So with that, I will call this meeting to order. It is now 8:04 a.m. on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. For the record, Yasmin will take roll call if she is available. I don't see her on the line, and so I'm going to do roll call. Do we have Vice Chair Derek Watchman present? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, present. Sorry about that.
No problem. Commissioner Meal,
Present.
Commissioner Lerner,
Present.
Commissioner York,
Present.
Commissioner Newberg is present. Please note for the minutes, a quorum is present. And Yasmin, welcome back. I took your job for today. With that, we'll move to 1B, a call for notice. Yasmin, was the notice and agenda for the commission meeting properly posted 48 hours in advance of today's meeting?
Yes, it was posted on Thursday afternoon.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 2, approval of minutes from February 9th, 2021 for the general session public meeting. As a reminder, a video recording fulfills all statutory requirements. Is there any discussion regarding the public session minutes for February 9th, 2021? Do I have a motion to approve the public session minutes recorded last week, February 9th?
So moved. Commissioner Meal.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner York.
Any further discussion? Okay, with that, we'll do a quick vote. Vice Chair Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
and Newberg is an aye. And with that, the minutes are unanimously approved. And then regarding executive session, there were no executive minutes. There was not executive session last week. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 3, which is opportunity for public comments. Public comment will now open at 8:06 for a minimum of 30 minutes and will remain open until the adjournment of this meeting. Comments will only be accepted electronically in writing on the link provided in the notice for agenda for this meeting and will be limited to 3,000 characters. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. With that, prior to moving on to agenda item 4, I'm going to use some discretion and jump to what should be a final matter, which is requesting to add something to our agenda for next week. And that is basically addressing the elephant in the room, which is the highly significant delay in the census data, which will now not be released until we're hoping the end of September. Because this was not a separate item in our agenda, we cannot address it in and of itself. And so I'm going to suggest to Yasmin that we put it on our agenda for next week, where we can really address it from a legal perspective, an ethical perspective regarding what is it that we are allowed to do in advance of that data, as it relates to any mapping activity, as it relates to soliciting input from our community. We'll want to understand and thoughtfully approach what kind of work makes sense for us to do collectively prior to the formal census data. With that understanding that we'll dive into that conversation next week, I encourage with the agenda items today to keep that in the back of our mind, but we have a tremendous amount of infrastructure and early work to do in order to position ourselves best. And so with that, let's dive into item number 4, which is discussion and possible action on interview questions and process for executive director hiring. We have a special guest today, John Fry. He is an employment law section chief with the AG's office, and he is here to help us think through overall policy with hiring. And we'll give him the floor, and then after that, open up to discussion. Hello, John.
Hello. Thank you, Chairwoman Newberg and members of the commission. I think in my opening remarks, I'll be very brief. It's probably most productive then to try to answer any specific questions that you may have. And I think what I'll do is just point you to one of many resources you have available to you as you navigate this process of recruiting for and hiring, as I understand it, both an executive director and then an executive assistant to that executive director and to the commission. I believe Chairwoman Newberg indicated that you have available to you the Arizona Attorney General's Office Agency Handbook, which is an excellent resource on any manner of topics, whether it's procurement, conflicts of interest, whatever the case may be. That AG handbook has a specific chapter, I believe it's chapter 3, on personnel. And then within that chapter 3, there's actually a very brief section specific to interviewing. And so I'll just read those 2 paragraphs to you, and then perhaps if you'd like, turn it over for questions. So what the AG's handbook has to say about interviewing is that job applicants should never be asked a question not directly related to their qualifications for employment. For example, an applicant should never be asked about his or her race, color, national origin, religion, age, sex, politics, marital or family status, genetic information, or family medical history. Because employment decisions may not be made upon these bases, agencies should avoid raising the issues and should decline to discuss these issues if the applicant raises them. Similarly, questions relating to disability should not be discussed until a decision is made that the applicant is otherwise qualified and will be offered the position, subject to the applicant's ability to demonstrate that he or she can perform the essential functions of the position with reasonable accommodation. And then the second paragraph of the section goes on for, I think, some really important practical guidance, and that is to ensure that all applicants receive the same consideration. Oral interviews should be structured so that the same procedure is used for all applicants, with specific questions prepared in advance, which, as I understand it, is part of the goal of this morning's session. Written notations of the reasons for any employment decision should be made and retained for 3 years after the employment decision has been made. So that's sort of the basic, but I think good and accurate guidance from the AG's handbook when it comes to interviewing applicants for employment. So in formulating your questions, I would encourage you to really focus on the applicant's knowledge, skills, and abilities compared to what it is the commission is looking for in an executive director and in an executive assistant. And you've spelled those out in your job posting. So, I think it would be important to focus on formulating and then asking questions that would result in answers that give you information about what qualifications and experience does the applicant have relative to what you've listed as the key functions of your executive director.
You know, John, I should have prefaced this with two things. Number one, just to alert the public, the commission may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for the purpose of obtaining legal advice and providing direction to counsel pursuant to ARS 38-431.03. So if the commission were to feel that there are questions that you would like to ask of our counsel, we do have the authority to do that. Also, I believe we will have next week to also have additional time to solidify specific questions. If we wanted to do that in executive session, we can certainly do that for the sake of having confidentiality if we want to be interviewing candidates without them having advance notice of those questions. So with that context, I open it up to questions amongst the commissioners for John.
Good morning, John, Commissioner York. I saw we posted the job last week. My question was, did we finalize a time frame? I guess that's probably not a question for you, John, maybe. 2 to 3 weeks, we said, Erica? I don't remember.
Yasmin, can you clarify exactly when it was posted? And I believe that we listed 14 days with a closing date.
Yes, that is correct, and I can pull it up here. Give me 1 second to give you the exact date of when it will close, but it was 14 days, I believe.
And you know, Yasmin, it may actually be helpful to pull up again the job description as we're thinking about the general types of questions to ask. And if there's any boundary issues that the commissioners may have, just thinking through, you know, because we want to get a sense of who these candidates are as people, with, you know, whatever potential biases they may have. And so this is an opportunity, you know, to kind of explore what questions, you know, can tap into understanding who they are, and what may, you know, kind of verge on maybe not being appropriate.
John, we can
And I
ask
just
about
pulled it
previous.
up.
Thanks, Jasmine. This is Commissioner York again. John, we can ask about previous experience, correct?
Absolutely. That is one of the key things. And I think it does go to a person's, you know, ability to perform the essential functions that you're looking for in this position, is their past experience relative to all those job duties that you see bullet pointed there on the job posting. One area sort of tangential to past experience that I would caution you to avoid inquiring into is the applicant's past salary history. There's been some recent case law from the Ninth Circuit relative to the Equal Pay Act. The Equal Pay Act is the federal law that, in a nutshell, says that people of different sexes are to be, you know, paid the same for equal work unless there's some legitimate bona fide reason unrelated to sex to pay them differently. And the Ninth Circuit has said, because of the history of potential salary inequities on the basis of sex, to base employees' starting salary in a new position based on their salary history could have the inadvertent effect of perpetuating that salary inequity and be a potential violation of the Equal Pay Act. So their past experience, their educational background, absolutely fair game. But I would avoid, you know, asking about their salary history. I would base their salary here on their relevant experience and the value they would bring to this job.
Right. And Yasmin, we said that went up when?
That went up on February 11th, and it will be closing on the 25th, I believe.
This is Commissioner Lerner. As a question, are we advertising anyplace else? Is it going on to other job recruitment sites or to gain visibility? And have we posted a press release about the job posting as well to try to get more visibility.
I know a press release, we did not discuss that, so I'm not sure. And then I'll find out right now from our human resources if they're posted it anywhere else other than the job board.
And then I agree, we had not discussed that. So I'm wondering, Commissioner Newberg, if we would want to consider having a quick press release to go out that just announces the job.
Personally, I see no downside to it. I mean, 14 days is a robust amount of time. I think everybody knows that we're garnering a lot of attention, and I think serious candidates are paying attention. But casting a wide net, I see no downside.
But if we do a press release, Commissioner Newberg, we should probably extend the job opening to the 26th.
I have a question about extending the opening. What does that mean in terms of us being able to move forward with screening the applicants and beginning the interview process? So part of the rationale of having it be a shorter window of 14 days rather than 21 was just giving us the closure to begin to move forward with interviewing and that entire process. So I just want to make sure I understand from the experts on the call what that would mean.
Chairwoman Newberg, this is John. I'll take a stab at it, although this is, and I try to be mindful of my lane, and this is probably more of a process question that the HR experts at ADOA are better equipped to answer. It seems to me that, first of all, great idea to cast as wide a net as possible. That's the more applicants that you're going to get to select from. It does seem to me that just from an efficiency perspective, if you're going to do a press release, you probably would want to consider extending the posting beyond February 25th so that you're not in a situation where you get one group of applicants, you review those, applications and resumes, and then have another batch coming in. It seems like it would be more efficient to get your pool from whatever source and then, begin your evaluation and review and winnowing down process.
This is Commissioner Meal. Our meetings, if we stay on Tuesdays, are the 23rd and then March 2nd. So closing on the 25th, we could extend it to March 1st and still then review whatever applicants we have at our meeting on March 2nd and not have really pushed anything back.
I'm comfortable with that.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I'm also comfortable with that. From my perspective, whatever we can do to get the word out, would be great. So if we could do it that way, that sounds good to me. And I don't know if there's another thing besides, I know Yasmin's checking.
We just posted it on the job board.
Just,
that was it.
Okay, so I don't know if we wanted to, while we're doing the press release at the same time, just post it on some other job boards or not. It's a question.
I think the press release would be adequate because Commissioner York.
I think it would get a lot of coverage. So this is Commissioner Meal. I make a motion that we authorize Chairwoman Newberg to prepare a press release at her discretion and to have it released to the press.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I'll second that motion.
And with that, let's add the detail of extending the closing date of the job posting.
I accept that addition.
To March 1st or?
To March 1st.
I concur as well. This is Commissioner Lerner.
Okay.
In fact, let's be more specific and make it noon on March 1st because someone has to compile meeting materials for us. Well, and actually that brings forward, do we need, in order to have in order to discuss those individuals, do we need to close it on Friday so that do we need to publicly disclose who's all the applicants? Or can we just review all those applications as part of an agenda item that says we're going to review applications without having to post all of the applications? So that's a question for legal counsel.
Right, and with that, John, and or additional legal counsel, what level of vetting already happens from the state? Can you walk us through the process of people actually applying, and then by the time it gets to us for our review of references and things like that?
Chairwoman Newberg, as to the question you just asked, that is a question for ADOA Human Resources. I don't know. Vetting of applicants takes place if they respond to a posting on the state jobs board. As to the first question, I believe it was, do you have to identify who all applied for the position? If I could, I'd like to do a little additional research on that. My recollection is there's an Arizona Supreme Court case that says the names of every single applicant is not a matter of public record. It's only when you window it down to finalists that it becomes a matter of public record, for the public policy reason of you don't necessarily want to chill people from applying because their name will be publicly disclosed, and perhaps they're currently employed elsewhere and maybe don't at the initial application stage, before they have any indication that they're going to either get the job or even be a finalist for it, necessarily have that be known to their current employer. So I don't believe, and again, I'd like to double check this, I don't believe you have to publish the name of every single applicant that you receive at the initial stage. There will come a point where the finalists for the position do become a matter of public record.
This is Commissioner Meal. Given that, I hold my motion as stated.
This is Commissioner Lerner. A question. Would we want to also have this press release published in Spanish in addition to English? I don't know if that's normally the way they're done, but they're published in both languages, in 2 languages.
That's a state issue. That's a very interesting question. I don't know if counsel or Yasmin is aware of whether press releases are translated. Or...
I am not aware. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think at the end of the day that I think interested parties will be aware of this job posting. Is there any other, I don't know if any of the other council wants to, or Yasmin wants to chime in with what kind of vetting the state might do prior to candidates reaching our personal desk?
Go ahead, Yasmin.
I believe they do an initial vetting, but I don't want to misspeak. So I'm trying to find out myself before I talk on the subject.
And this is Pamela Pizer. As far as the actual applications go and the vetting, I would defer to how DOA and HR typically carry that out. With regard to the posting of the notice in both Spanish and English, if there is some sort of federal law relating to elections that impacts how something like this would be posted, then I would say yes, it's required. I don't believe there is, though, based on the way this particular commission is set up. With regard to if that's not required, if the commission wishes to also post in Spanish, that is certainly a business decision the commission can make based upon the needs that they're trying to address.
Okay. Commissioner Meal, do you mind? I'd like to come back to the motion and just center us again around, you made a motion regarding the timing of closing the job description and moving forward. So, and then Shireen, Commissioner Lerner was going to second that. So let's just come back to the specifics of that.
Can I jump in really quick? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So it looks like we can't put the time for noon. It always closes at 11:59 p.m. of that day.
That's fine.
Well, yeah, and I do think, this is Commissioner Meal, I think we're going to want to review those before the 9 o'clock meeting on Tuesday. So maybe I should amend that motion and have it close on Friday, at the end of the day on Friday.
February 26th.
February 26th. Because we'll need things sent to us in time to review them. So if Commissioner Lerner's okay, I would amend that to February 26th.
I'm fine with that, Commissioner Meal. That makes sense. So we're almost back where we were. We were at February 25th. Now we're at the 26th.
February 22nd, I think is what we were at, but.
Oh, I thought it was the 25th.
The 25th.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I think, it's still a full 2 weeks. And and I think, as Chairwoman Newberg has said, people are already aware. So the press release just helps give it a little more visibility.
Okay, so with that amendment, do we have a second? Commissioner Lerner, you seconded, correct?
Correct.
And with that, we'll take a quick vote. Vice Chair Watchman?
Aye.
Commissioner Meal?
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner?
Aye.
Commissioner York?
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye, and so we will keep the job opening up until the end of day on the 26th of February. And with that, excuse me?
We'll do a press release. That was the initial
Yes.
part of that.
We'll do a press release, cast a very wide net, close it at the end of day on the 26th. Is there any other discussion with John while we have his expertise here? Again, we will have time next week to discuss specific questions, and I encourage my colleagues to, look through the job description and think through, the questions that we want to ask. Is there a general sense of would you like to agree on the questions in an executive session to make sure that those candidates are not aware of the questions we'll ask them? Or is this something that the commissioners would like to discuss in open?
Commissioner Meal, I think you make a good point that that we probably don't want it public exactly what questions we're going to be asking.
Okay. So with next week, I don't believe we need a motion for this, but just in terms of Yasmin with our agenda, we should note that there's the possibility that we'll go into executive session next week to discuss specific questions for our interview with the executive director. And with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is discussion of public comments received prior to today's February 16th meeting. Is there any discussion with what we have received to date?
No.
This is Vice Chair Watchman. I don't have any. It seems that the public comments that we are receiving are basically asking for transparency and asking for a way to offer public comment beyond the 30 or the time frame that we allot during our meetings. And so we can certainly discuss that at a later time, but I think it's par for the course at this point.
Yeah, agreed. I think that there's remarkable consistency, a desire for involvement, transparency, and I look forward to our conversation next week about ways in which we can engage the public prior to the census data, where we can learn and prepare but not be biased. And so that's that balance of doing the work that we can and learning, but also being open to receiving whatever kind of data ultimately it is released. Given that there's no further, any other further discussion before I move on? Okay. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 6. If there is additional conversation, which is discussion and possible action on executive director and other administrative support positions. I believe that we discussed a lot of this as it related to the posting of the executive director position. If there are any other conversations as it relates to other positions, time frame, anything else?
Chairwoman Newberg, this is Commissioner Lerner. Did we post, we were going to, I think, post the executive assistant. I'm sorry if I'm unaware, but did that get posted as well?
We did. Yeah, Yasmin, I believe we posted it on the same day that the executive director position was posted, and I believe it was the same 14-day closing period. Yasmin, can you please confirm?
Yes, that is correct.
Could I, this is Commissioner Lerner again. Could I ask another question then? Should we be also considering, or can we wait for the communications person, since we're looking at website development, social media, we've had those discussions. Should that be something we also post so that the executive director, once on board, would have those applications as well to review? Or we can wait on that one?
Commissioner Meal, I would tend to wait and let the executive director help draft what we're looking for in that position.
That's fine. I was thinking it's one of our higher priorities, but I'm fine with that as well.
But part of my instinct to want to wait a little bit has more to do with understanding everybody's unique strengths. So we don't yet have our executive director. You know, he or her may bring special abilities that we want then to complement with the other hires. And so one of the silver linings, if we could say there is one, of the census delay is that it does allow us the time and the space to be approaching these hires with deliberation and thought about placing people in the right places and efficiency. Having said that, you know, time goes by very fast, and I get the sense that my colleagues are right along with me in wanting to move the process along.
This is Commissioner Lerner again. Just one other question now that and I agree with you, I concur with what you're saying. Since we extended, even I know it was just by a day or two, the executive director, now that we know, do we want to extend the executive assistant one more week? Just because we're not going to be doing there's not going to be any movement on it until we've hired an executive director. So we don't necessarily need a 2-week window on the assistant position. We could conceivably open it up, and then perhaps the press release could include that an executive assistant position is also being advertised, just to get that much visibility, and then extend that one maybe another week.
Yasmin, are we able to do that? Can we just go in and change the closing date?
Yes, we can extend it.
And
again, I see no downside. Any discussion?
This is Commissioner
I
Lerner.
agree with Lerner.
Are we
idea.
agreeing to also just include a line item that says we're also advertising an executive assistant in the press release? That was the other piece of that. I was wondering.
Commissioner Meal, that would put it to March 5th. End of the day, March 5th would be that next Friday.
And I can't imagine we're going to hire the assistant for the executive director. So I don't think that timing is necessarily problematic.
Agree.
So if we, I think it's an excellent idea, and it sounds like there's consensus if somebody wants to make a motion.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I move that we extend the deadline for the executive assistant to March 5th, and we include an item in the press release that that position is also being advertised for the commission.
Do we have a second?
Vice Chair Watchman seconds.
Any further discussion?
No.
Quick vote. Vice Chairman Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
and Newberg is an aye, and so that motion passes unanimously. Any other further discussion on other administrative support positions? With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is discussion and possible action on budget. The commissioners received information both on past expenditures from the previous commission to give us just a context and baseline of the trajectory of the budget flow, as well as an estimate of expenses for year 1. With that, I'd like clarification from either Council or Yasmin of the state fiscal year, because everybody's fiscal years must start on different days. I believe that the Arizona state fiscal year ends at the end of July, or is it June? Yasmin or Council, because we have been allocated 500,000, I believe, for this first section of our fiscal year. And with that, can we get clarification on the dates?
This is Pamela Pizer. The fiscal year for the state runs from July 1st through June 30th of the following year. In terms of how that relates to budget planning, though, I would defer to ADOA on that.
And that does stand for the IRC budget.
Yasmin,
Is there, go ahead,
No, I
Commissioner
was
York.
Yasmin, I didn't understand what you said.
I said that does stand for the budget for the IRC. That's what the 500,000 is for until June 30th of 2021.
So, Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Watchman. So it looks like we have 500,000 that we have available between now and the end of June. Are we currently being charged for services provided by ADOA or the Attorney General's office? I did hear in one of the presentations that there's a surcharge for most of the services that ADOA has, and so just curious, how Yasmin's time and others, if that's being booked to, so to speak, our account.
That's an excellent question, Commissioner Watchman. I'll defer to ADOA. There are some specific items that we're required to cover, and I do believe the state has granted us services. But Yasmin,
Yeah,
if you could chime in.
Yeah, so for me, no, but as of right now, we haven't incurred any cost, but we probably will. Transcription services, and once our procurement and all of that, for the computers, they haven't been issued, and the phones either, but once they do, yes.
To the extent that the state has the infrastructure and the staff to support us, they've graciously, given of their time. The extra expenses will be on us. So, for example, the physical space, some of it is prepaid. We will begin to be paying sometime midsummer. But I think the holistic question of where are we as it relates to what's been allocated to us, and are we being responsible stewards? I'd say, of course, it's quite early, but everything's within appropriate norms. We have not authorized or asked for anything that would stress, our allocation in any kind of way. We selected a location that's practical. The Attorney General's office has been providing excellent legal counsel up to now at, I believe, no expense to us. And so we move into this process, I think, in an excellent position. And I also think as it relates to this budget conversation, at the end of the day, we're going to spend what we need to spend. We're going to hire the appropriate staff who can go to the legislature and make the case for what we need. We'll be as responsible as we can. And I think the single largest item in the past has been legal fees. And I challenge all of us collectively that if we use these early months to do our hires well, and we continue, with this good faith effort that we're all making, let's hope that we can save our state a lot of money through litigation. I think that's really where the big dollars end up being.
So, Madam Chair, another question. I think the legislature is in session right now. They're in fact talking about budgets for this upcoming fiscal year. And so I'm not sure if we have to do some work on that and how much time we have. And, I think, I'm not sure what the time frame for when the legislature deals with the budget, but we probably should be thinking about that. I am looking at the template that was sent to us and speaks to roughly 822,000 and some change. And so is that the budget that's being put on the table for us for fiscal year 2021?
No, there is no budget being proposed. And clarify, please, ADOA, my understanding is this was for a point of context, an educational reference for us about what we might expect. I don't think we're quite at that stage to be proposing a specific budget. We haven't hired anybody yet.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm saying, do we need to? Because right now they are talking about the budget for this upcoming fiscal year. And so maybe Yasmin and others can give us some information on the budget cycle and the budget time frame so that at least we're aware of it so that we don't get caught having to put something together quickly. So that's a question for all of us to think about.
This is Commissioner Meal. I think Commissioner Watchman raises a very good point, and we should also specifically inquire, is there a line item that is being proposed for us? Because I suspect that there already is.
There is. And I don't know if there's any staff on the call who is prepared to discuss this with us right now. I do believe that there is a sense of what is allocated for us, not just in this fiscal year, but also next year. I don't want to get ahead of where we are.
So this is Yasmin. I am going to have our attorney check in with OSPB to see if the IRC needs to submit a proposal for budget for next year.
And this is Commissioner Meal and Yasmin, as part of that, you'll ask if there is a line item now for us?
That is correct. As of right now, I don't believe so. But it looks like we won't know until May. That's what I am told.
This is Commissioner York. Just for a sense of clarification, we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about a current fiscal 2021 budget and a proposed fiscal budget for 2022, so that the public understands what Commissioner Newberg's trying to say is that she's not aware of any budget currently in fiscal 21, which ends at the end of June. And then we will make sure that the public understands how much money we have set aside for fiscal 22 going forward at time we get the data from the Department of Administration, which I believe Yasmin will hopefully have for us in the next week or two. Is that correct?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I thought I heard, did you mention 500,000 that we have available?
I believe we have 500,000
Okay.
available through the end of June.
Okay.
And Commissioner York, thanks for that clarification. And just as a point, our budget will be running through the Department of Administration, correct? It's a question.
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah, Yasmin, counsel, I believe, yes.
I didn't catch the question. I apologize.
Our budget will be running through the Department of Administration.
Yes, if that's what you guys are wanting, yes.
Yasmin, this is Commissioner Lerner. Is there an alternative to that? I thought that was the.
No, so see it, yes. I apologize, yes. We will be handling.
Okay, good.
Any other further conversation on budget? Okay.
No.
With that, we will move on to item number 8, which is discussion and possible action on securing legal counsel and other consultative support. We had a little time to digest the information that ADOA sent to us on law firms that have already been vetted, that have contracts with the state. Is there any additional conversation? I mean, I presume that our eventual executive director will be an integral part of, vetting this and guiding us through this process. But as we're thinking through the process, conversation.
This is Commissioner Meal, and looking through the list, I think it's clear that we should expand and not be limited to those firms that are already under contract with the government. I noted, I know of firms that I think could do a very excellent job that are not on that list. So I think that when we seek legal firms, we should not limit ourselves to that list.
I would like to take advantage of counsel and ADOA on that. Yes, we have the authority to hire independently. I'd like to understand what our responsibility is with regard to vetting, legal firms with procurement, ensuring that there's competitive bids, what that means if we were to choose to hire outside of firms that have already been contracted. I just want to make sure that we collectively understand what that means for us in terms of ensuring that the state requirement, the state does a lot of services already to ensure, quality and all of that. So I want to understand what would be required of us to ensure that these companies met our procurement codes. Ethically, not legally, ethically.
This is Pamela Pizer. In terms of the actual hiring process, I don't know if perhaps John could weigh in here. I know that he probably does more outside counsel research than I do, but in terms of the process, the commission, regardless of how they come about hiring outside counsel or people or services, they still have an obligation to make sure that the money that they're spending on behalf of the state is spent in a good and conscientious manner, meaning that they've reviewed all the possibilities, they've made sure that they're getting kind of the best bang for the buck, or most bang for the buck, that the person or firm has the appropriate experience required for the job, and it's not simply a giveaway or a friend type situation. In terms of procurement, there is specific processes that are gone through with procurement. Assuming the IRC goes through the procurement process, that process is set up with safeguards already built in, so that the money is spent in a responsible and ethical manner. That also includes safeguards in terms of dispute resolution, and if questions come up along the way, everything is already laid out in the procurement code in terms of how that would get approached.
Mr. Neal, I know I would have a personal bias to Arizona firms that are significant firms and well-known. And I don't think but not every significant Arizona firm is on that current procurement list because they don't provide those. They may not have a expertise in the specific areas that the government has sought legal advice. Election law is its own peculiar specialty, and there are definitely election law attorneys from many firms that are not listed in that procurement list. So I think we would do ourselves a disservice to limit ourselves to that list. And I think we can very comfortably find firms that we can vet and be confident in, whether it's one firm or two firms going forward.
What would the process be, Commissioner Meal, for that firm to get on the state approved list? Is that, and maybe this is again for council or state employees, how cumbersome is that process?
As Commissioner Meal, is my understanding from earlier conversations that we can advertise however we like and select however we would like. And they don't need to get onto the government approved list specifically. We just need to be prudent and good stewards and in that selection process. Right,
but what I'm wondering is how difficult would it be for them to get on the list? I mean, if it's obviously there's a certain level of comfort when the state says they're on our list. How cumbersome is that process? And is there a reason why they wouldn't be able to get on the list? I don't know what the process is to get on the list in the first place.
This is Pamela Kaiser, and I would just point out that you said if they could get on the list, it's also possible that some firms choose not to be on the list for, the reason that they don't want to deal with the process or whatever reason they may have. But I would say that it probably goes both ways.
And Chairwoman Newberg and Commissioner Meal, I would just add, I agree with everything that's been said. For firms that are on the list that you've been provided, those firms are on that list because they have already gone through a procurement process that complies with the Arizona Procurement Code. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that this commission has the authority to hire its own counsel and isn't necessarily bound to that list of firms that have already gone through that procurement process. That said, I don't know the finer points. I can't answer your specific question. What does the process look like? But I believe for state agencies and entities that have that authority to hire their own legal counsel, they do still need to go through some form of a procurement process to ensure, open competition, to use a phrase, sweetheart deals, that type of thing. So the firms on the list you've been provided have gone through that process. You're not restricted just to that list, but if you want to use a firm not on that list, you probably do need to go through a procurement process. And it makes me think that was one of the qualifications you're looking for in an executive director. So that'll be an excellent point of inquiry as to their experience with procurement processes in Arizona state government.
Chairwoman.
Yeah, very well said. Go, Yasmin, go ahead.
So I'm not sure if you guys actually had a chance to read the ADOA updates that I sent over as well with the meeting materials. There was a line on procurement which said that, you know, for legal services and mapping consultants, that we were going to put out an RFP, a request for proposal for these, which I had said, you know, it would go out on Friday, and they actually did. I will send you the links to both of them. So those requests for proposals have gone out for both legal services and mapping consultants.
And this is Commissioner Mio. Yasmin, I assume that RFP is open-ended and is not restricted to previous procurement list lawyers.
That is correct. It is open.
My sense of the conversation, you know, Commissioner Meal, I'm inclined to agree with you that a wider net is better. I'm open-minded. My sense is the commission is open-minded. It's just an extra burden on us to do due diligence with the procurement process, you know, to make sure we're doing right by the state.
This is Commissioner Meal. Evidently, we'll have the time to do that.
Hey, the better infrastructure leads to better results. I'm okay with this. Okay, is there any other conversation about the legal counsel? I don't believe we need a motion. I don't think there's anything that we're moving on with a business perspective here, but just vetting through what we're looking for.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we will move on then to item number 9, discussion and possible action on mapping consulting support, even though mapping may feel like a very far away goal, but any discussion on mapping consulting?
This is Commissioner Lerner. I just want clarification from Yasmin, if that's okay. So there's an RFP already out for legal counsel and the mapping consultant. So
yes.
At this point, we are just, and since they're open-ended, we're not going to be moving forward with that other than to take a look at what's been out there. And at some point in the future, however distant, I suppose we need to come up with guidelines for what we're interested in as part of that.
That is correct. And I believe it's going to close on the 26th. So it will be open for 2 weeks.
Commissioner Lerner, this is Commissioner Lerner. Wait, for the mapping consultant and legal services, or both RFPs are closed on the 26th?
Yes, they're going to be posted for 2 weeks.
So I guess my question to the other commissioners, is there a reason for us to be closing that? Or do we want to maybe extend that for another month or so, because we won't have an executive director probably for a month. So it would be my suggestion to extend that, and then again do a press release for those services as well.
This is Pamela Pizer. Yasmin, could you clarify whether you meant they close in 2 weeks or that's the earliest review?
They close. The earliest review would be, you know, the next commission meeting after the 26th, if that's what the commission wanted. So it closes on the 26th, February 26th.
This is Commissioner Meal. I agree with Commissioner Lerner that we should extend that date. I would maybe suggest extending it a few weeks. I don't know if it's out there a month. I think we would have cleared the field at that point, and we can start at least looking at what's come in, but I would extend it 2 weeks beyond. In fact, I'll make a motion that we extend both the mapping and legal closure date by 2 weeks, whatever that would end up being.
And Commissioner Meal, this is Commissioner Lerner. Could we also add that we have a press release on that as well? Your motion.
That I lost you there. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm suggesting that to add to your motion that a press release announcing that we are seeking people for mapping and legal services also be part of the motion. If that's okay.
I accept that addition.
So what would be the date that we're looking at?
March 12th.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, Vice Chair Watchman offers a second to that motion by Commissioner Meal.
Okay, with that, we will do a quick vote. Vice Chairman Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye, and with that, the motion passes. We will keep open the RFPs with mapping consultant and legal until March 12th.
And do a press release.
And absolutely do a press release. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item number 10, which is discussion on ADOA resources and updates. There's quite a bit of activity as it relates to this. Yasmin, I don't know who on tap with ADOA is here to give us these updates.
So that would be me, and most of the items we actually touched on. The first one would be IT services. We're working on the website. It looks like the first draft of the website was available on the 12th. I sent the link as well. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to review or not, but once that is finalized, we hope that will be ready next week. The irc.az.gov website. Also, the laptops for all of you should be ready by Wednesday, February 27th. So if you can reach out to me to let me know when you would be available to pick up your laptop. Emails are also ready to go. The format of the email will be first name dot last name at irc.az.gov, and login instructions will be following by me. Cell phones as well. I would like to know if everybody would like cell phones. If you can email me if you would like cell phones, and I have the cost there for it. I'm not sure if anybody will be needing mobile hotspots. And human resources, we already talked about that. We posted both of the executive director job opening and the executive assistant on February 11th. It looks like we're now going to be closing on the 26th instead of the 25th. And for procurement, we just touched on that both legal services and mapping consultants, there have been issued RFPs for both of those. For finance, I sent you guys the estimate annual budget that ADOA put together along with the past budget. And for facilities, we're just waiting for the Automobile Theft Authority to move out. It looks like they were in the space that the IRC will be taking over. And once we know an exact date of that, we will advise. And those are all the updates that I have, Madam Chairwoman.
Hey, Yasmin, I thank you so much. ADOA has been amazingly helpful. Regarding the website, and I was remiss on this as well, I just noticed myself yesterday, all commissioners should please try to get a bio and a photo of ourselves to Yasmin so we can put that up on the website to get that live. In terms of the emails, Yasmin, is that they're ready to go, and so it's now up to us to log on and set it up? Is that what you've said?
I will be actually sending instructions on how to log in.
Okay. That will be very helpful. Any other questions on ADOA updates resources?
This is Commissioner Lerner. First of all, thank you very much, Yasmin, and to DOA for all the work you're doing to help us get going. I do have a question about the old website. And will information from the old website be migrating over to the new one, or are we going to, is it going to stay separate from previous years? What happens to the old one?
I believe we're going to try to put as much information from the old website into the new website, but I believe we're going to be keeping both just so we don't lose anything either. I'll confirm that though. I don't want to, but I believe that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Lerner, our goal is to have it archived within our domain here within the Arizona government domain. If we can't bring all of it, we will absolutely provide a link for all of the archived information so that it's all provided in one spot to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
Any other ADOA updates?
That is it on my end.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 11, which is update on the status of the Howard open meeting law complaint provided by our Attorney General counsel. And just as a reminder, this was a complaint filed for our first two meetings, questioning going into executive session for the purpose of picking the independent chair.
Thank you. Pamela Pfizer speaking. At this time, I do not have any update to provide. I'm still waiting to hear back from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Any other conversation from commissioners? With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 12, which is discussion and possible action on the scheduling of upcoming meetings. As we think about this, next week may be a little more relevant as we kind of think through what we can do and what we can't do as it relates to our work prior to the census data. But I know that maybe summer calendaring is on everybody's mind. Some of us like to either get away or have some things in mind to travel. And so, you know, as we come together next week to talk about maybe fleshing out what our calendar might be, we should also, the five of us, think through, are there weeks that, you know, some of you might be going away, would like to go away. If the five of us can coordinate and block off similar times, that's helpful. But I think that's something that, you know, particularly with the census delay, is appropriate for us to be thinking about with our overall schedule. So please come next week thinking about what your ensuing few months might look like. And what maybe priority dates might be for you to block off. Any other discussion on that item?
Commissioner Newberg, this is Commissioner York. And perhaps maybe that discussion is also carried on in executive session. I'm not sure the public needs to know all our personal lives or schedules. So nothing against sharing. I just think that's important.
Okay, so excellent point, Yasmin. Let's just make a note that as we discuss our action on scheduling of upcoming meetings, that we may go into executive session to discuss personal items that are relevant to this.
Commissioners, this is Pamela Pfizer. I just wanted to break in and let you know that there's not a basis that I'm aware of in open meeting law that would allow for that.
Oh.
Commissioner, Ms. Pfizer, what we're discussing is our scheduling of future meetings, but we'd like to have that dialogue in a fashion that maybe that we can share different dates that we don't have available, and I'm not sure the public needs to be aware of all that. That's Commissioner York.
I definitely understand what you're saying, but unfortunately, you know, I just need to advise you of what the open meeting law says. you know, because executive session requires certain constraints. In terms of scheduling, though, if there's a legal question regarding the scheduling of meetings, that can certainly be addressed in executive session. But if there's any specifics that, you know, individual commissioners feel like they need to give or want to give, that could be provided by email or even personally to Yasmin, or if there is a person on board by the time this conversation happens, it could also be held with them.
And I think it's also, you know, we can discuss dates that were available. We're certainly not obligated to share why there might be conflicts. I mean, you know, the five of us have multiple hats that we wear, and you know, other priorities, and our availability is, you know, nobody else's business.
Right.
Okay. So with that, item number 12, a sub item is set standard meeting date and time. We Tuesdays. Next week again was an aberrant time. I believe we're scheduled for 2 p.m. Yasmin, can you please confirm next week, the 23rd?
That is correct.
Okay, and then after that, if we want to look forward, we have generally been aiming for 9 a.m. on Tuesday mornings. That works for me, unless there are conflicts that any other commissioners would like to bring up. I would suggest that we keep this time frame. We're going to have some interviews coming up that will likely go a little longer than we normally you know meet for, but provided that Tuesdays are good, let's aim for ongoing meetings Tuesday at 9 o'clock.
Sounds good. I'm good with it.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to agenda item 13, which is discussion of future agenda item requests. I suggest, Yasmin, like we talked about earlier, let's put the census delay item on the agenda, not just for next week, but actually as a recurring item, because it may well be a dominant theme as we move forward.
This is Commissioner Meal, Chairwoman Newberg. Would it make sense for one of us, and hopefully not me, to draft some questions that can then be circulated before the meeting, just something to start with in our discussion of questions to ask the executive director?
That's an excellent question, and if the other commissioners would like to, I'd be willing to synthesize that information. If you would, you know, I'm happy to kind of do a deep dive in the job description and looking through really what the essence of the job is, crafting some early questions. I'm a huge believer in diversity of thinking, and really don't want to be the sole driver of that. I suggest maybe all of us submit potential questions to Yasmin, and when we go into the meeting next week, we could have a list of kind of predetermined ideas of what may be great suggestions, and we can vote from there.
Commissioner Meal again, I think that would be great, and I would appreciate anybody sending things in, and if you'll take a stab at it, that would be excellent.
Commissioner Lerner, I agree. Thank you.
Any other agenda items? I presume that most of what we discussed today ought to be on the agenda again next week as it relates to the hiring of the executive director and other consultative positions, legal mapping, ongoing conversations about public comment, ongoing conversation, ongoing conversation about budget. And I think that is the essence of what we're tasked with. Any other agenda item suggestions?
As regards to Commissioner York, regards to possibly in-person interviews, is that a situation for finalists that we would consider? I personally would like that. For the executive director position, sorry.
Let's put that on the agenda next week, Commissioner York. Let's, as we think through the process of hiring, do we want to have in-person interviews amongst, the finalists? It's a good question.
You need to close comments, I think.
Yes, well, we're on item number 14, announcements. Our next meeting date will be next Tuesday, the 23rd at 2 p.m. And with that, we are going to come to item number 15, which is closing of the public comments. It is now 9:19 a.m. Public comment is now closed. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. And with that, unless there is any other items to bring up, that brings us to item number 16, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Vice Chair motions to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Commissioner York.
Okay, with that, Vice Chairman Watchman,
Aye.
Meal,
Aye.
Lerner,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
and Newberg is an aye. With that, we will adjourn, and I look forward to seeing the public and my colleagues next week at 2 p.m. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.